I want to talk about the myth that immigrants built America, that immigrants built New York City, and that everyone that is in America is an immigrant, because it's not true.
New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant.
That eliminates the story of those formerly enslaved people and products of that enslavement, like myself. There's been a concerted effort to eliminate Black Americans from the conversation of their impact and importance in the way that this country was built and developed, but with free labor from my ancestors. I'm really glad that Zohran Mamdani is the mayor of New York City. I did my part to campaign for him and boost his messaging, and the fact that I thought he would make a good mayor on this page and very loudly on social media. But that doesn't abscond him from critique. Black Americans versus immigrants, and how these two aren't the same, and how it is imperative that we understand the difference when talking about the development of this nation and what that means for history and what that means for our present and our future. New York was not a city built solely by immigrants. New York was a city founded by European settlers and developed initially by the work of enslaved Black people. In the early days of New York City, Black people cleared the land, built roads, built the initial buildings, built Wall Street, built the first city hall. They built the first city ports. And Black people were vital to the success of the early days of New York City, working in various arenas such as artisans, domestic servants. Black people are pivotal to the development of this nation, full stop. And without Black Americans, no immigrant would be allowed to come here, especially no immigrant who is Black, brown, or any of the above. So when you have immigrants who are able to come to America, and they came in waves in New York. So New York was developed by immigrants as well, and immigration as well, but those waves were allowed by the development and work of Black Americans. So you have a group of people who built the country, were enslaved in this country for centuries before any immigrants came. And those immigrants are allowed to do things and being propped up over in spite of Black Americans. So when you have immigrants that come here and they're able to succeed, they're not coming with the weight or baggage of being the product of slavery here. They then turn around and look down on Black Americans, or say, why can't you do what we did? Or Black Americans are lazy, but you do not understand what it means to be Black American in America. And Zohran, I've seen your team. I don't think I've seen any Black people on your team. And I hope you get someone who's Black from New York, and hopefully a Black woman, to make sure you are touching every part of the city. And that includes Black Americans who are foundational to that city, not just all the immigrant populations. Even though we all live amongst each other, and New York is New York because of the diversity, there needs to be an effort to ensure that we are not eliminating Black Americans from the conversation, because without Black Americans, they would not be in America, and they would definitely not be in New York City. Congratulations once again on winning the race. I think you're going to be a phenomenal mayor. I just think this is something you need to think about, and it's something that needed to be addressed, and something that's brought to your attention.
New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant.
This is an excellent point. I listened to part of Mamdani's victory speech. I didn't hear all of it, but I did hear the part where he stated that New York City was built by immigrants. I beg to differ. Immigrants helped, but New York City, as well as this country, was built by Black Americans, especially our enslaved ancestors. And specifically regarding New York City, again, you all need to look up Seneca Village, which was a vibrant, thriving Black community that the city destroyed in order to build what is now known as Central Park. Everyone tries to discredit and erase the contributions of Black Americans who are descended from enslaved Africans and how our ancestors built this nation. Bottom line, the White House, where the East Wing is being demolished so that the felon in chief can have his gilded ballroom that we all need, was built by enslaved people. And so here's this narrative about immigrants. Again, you all, Black Americans, we must stand together collectively and use our voice. And by using our voice, I mean by speaking with our dollars and economic power to make sure that we get what we want and that our contributions in this country are not erased.
African Americans built this nation. We built this nation. You know, you're just starting to get real credit for that.
There's a clip going around of Donald Trump talking about how great American innovation is. And everything that he named that America invented, it was a Black person that invented it.
This is a nation that invented the light bulb, the telegraph, the television, the telephone, the computer chip, the smartphone, the GPS, the integrated circuit, and even the internet. Basically, we invented everything.
GPS is a Black woman. 3D imaging is a Black woman. Laser eye surgery is a Black woman. Escalators a Black inventor. Elevators a Black inventor. The roller coaster is Granville T. Woods. Roller coaster, everything.
Internet, the cell phone.
The cell phone. I was just watching the thing on the cell phone. Our video games is Jerry Lawson in Silicon Valley. They try not to mention him, but he's the reason why we have Xbox.
Black people in New York City, look, y'all should just leave. I'll tell you why. Because everything that Zohran Mamdani stands for doesn't benefit you as a Black Americans in general. So if you Black, white, if you are American, nothing that man ran on is going to benefit you in the long run. The businesses are going to leave. Crime's going to go up because everybody's going to be outside poor. Not only that, more and more immigrants are going to come. So now it's going to be overcrowded with no businesses and no jobs. Crime's going to go up. That does not benefit you at all. So really think about it. If it's not going to be any more money, no more opportunities, the state is about to be flooded with immigrants. The real Islam is right around the corner. Dearborn, Michigan is over. It's over for Dearborn. You guys are next. Now, the Islam that I'm talking about that's on its way, I'm not talking about the Islam where the Black people, the fake, that's not, no. The real Islam is on its way. If that's what y'all, nothing Zohran Mamdani ran on, I promise you, if you're American, especially if you Black, I'm telling you right now, none of it is going to benefit you. The countdown has started because we've seen this shit before. It's not going to work. And I hate to see, and I'm in Cali. It's horrible out here. But what's going to happen to y'all out there in New York, good luck, man.
Something I want to say around the topic of Black Americans and then immigrants. I'm seeing lots of videos from Black Americans urging Zohran Mamdani, new mayor of New York, soon to be, to not forget about Black Americans, because in his speech, and this is also something I noticed, he did talk about all of a bunch of the immigrant communities in New York and how they built New York. And he completely neglected Black Americans. I'm not from New York, I'm from Massachusetts, but even here and all over the country, I have seen how local government always deprioritizes Black Americans specifically. Now, I don't think electing Zohran Mamdani was a mistake. I really like him, even though I will not benefit from his policies. I'm very happy he won, and I hope more people like him go up to become leaders in this country. But I also urge them not to forget or deprioritize Black Americans. The Black American experience is different from the immigrant experience, even if it's a Black immigrant, two different experiences. And on a statistical level, so this is data, this is not me making it up. Black Americans are deprioritized below immigrants. And that's not immigrants' fault. That is literally just how the system works. And because of that, I see so much division when it comes to Black Americans and immigrants, because it's hard to look past someone who's new to this country getting certain benefits or policies or programs that you have either needed or waited for and still have yet to get, even though you've been here your whole life. It's hard for them to look past that and see that what's really the issue is the system. And then on the flip side, what I see, and again, this is not me saying all Black Americans, all immigrants, but on the flip side, what I'll see are immigrants will come to this country and they will rise above the odds, which is amazing. But then they'll look back at Black Americans and say, well, if I did it, why can't you? Are you just lazy? And then that whole dynamic just pits Black Americans and immigrants against each other, which I hate. People need to remember that because of chattel slavery, it was Black Americans who were stolen from their own land and brought here. We laid the foundation. We laid the foundation for you to come here and then build on top of that. So yes, saying immigrants built this country is not wrong, but completely ignoring that Black Americans laid the foundation for them and then also built alongside them, that's what the message should have been. I really hope, because I saw his team, Zohran Mamdani's transition team, and I know it's all women, but I don't think I saw any Black Americans specifically on there.
Do you know the people that are on Zohran Mamdani's transition team? This is the first time a mayor has had an all-woman transition team. The person who's overseeing the transition team is Maria Springer Torres. She was the deputy mayor of New York City. She was the deputy mayor for Housing, Economic Development, and Workforce. She was the commissioner for Small Business Services, and she was the commissioner for Housing Preservation and Development. We have Lena Khan. She's a legal scholar and she was the chair of the FTC. She was actually the youngest chair of the FTC under Joe Biden. When she was appointed as chairperson, Amazon filed a petition trying to get her to recuse herself so that she didn't investigate their company. We have Grace Bonilla. She's the president and CEO of the United Way of New York City. She was tasked with helping to bridge the equity gap in New York. Because of her, they were able to distribute 15 million pounds of food to families in need, and they were able to expand preventative healthcare access for hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers. Melanie Hartzog, she was the deputy mayor of New York City's Health and Human Services, and she was the one who coordinated the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and she was the first woman of color to oversee the largest municipal budget in the United States. Last but not least, we have Alana Leopold. She's the executive director, she's a political strategist, and she also used to work for Bill de Blasio. This is a wealth of knowledge.
I do hope that he gets someone on his team who is a Black American, I would say a Black American woman, who can advise him on how to approach and help our community. Even though, again, I'm not from New York. I'm just saying, like, the community in New York. Because it's just different. It is different from the immigrant experience. And I hope all leaders who are coming up in this country also just remember that.
Last night, Zohran Mamdani's had his victory speech, and he made some Black Americans cringe because he was talking about how New York was built by immigrants. Hold on, let me show you.
New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant.
So there were some Black Americans that took offense to this because, you know, Black Americans are routinely left out of the conversation when it comes to building America. And a lot of people, especially people who are immigrants and who are in the political sphere, Obama has done it before, you know, talk about how this country was built on immigrants and immigrants are the ones who built this country, when Black Americans are not immigrants. It's like they always are either taking us for granted or just conveniently leaving us out. So I understand that, and I feel that same way. Although with this speech, I didn't really get that. I listened to the whole speech, and while I understand the sentiment of my fellow Black Americans, I also understand what Zohran was trying to say. And before that, in the speech, he had said that he wanted to make a New York the city that could be affordable to all the Black American women who had, well, he didn't say Black American, he just said Black women, but, you know, Black with a capital B, that had been let go from federal jobs by Trump. And he also said this.
So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up.
He said, turn the volume up, which I have to think that he was referencing KRS-One, great Black American rapper from the 80s and 90s. So he said, turn the volume up, the devil's time is up. So I gotta think he was referencing that. And he also used hip hop a lot during the campaign. Remember when he went to the Wu-Tang concert and spoke to the Wu and, you know, Jadakiss and Styles P and Killer Mike? Like, he used Black American culture as a way to forward his campaign throughout the entire campaigns. I understand why people might be reluctant to take him on. I'm gonna be watching from New Jersey and hoping for the best.
So I just got called xenophobic for saying that immigrants did not build New York City. Immigrants did not build the United States of America. I don't care which way you want to turn the key. I don't care if you came here with 50 cents. I don't care if you swam over here, if you caught a boat, a plane, a train. I don't care how you got here. If you came here once the United States of America was established as a country and you have immigrant status or an immigrant background, you did not, you nor your ancestors nor your forefathers built this country. It is a slap in the face for all of the free labor, for all of the paid labor, the pennies paid, the blood, sweat, and tears that our ancestors poured into this country. There's some Caucasian Americans who also their ancestors helped to build this country. But a lot of you all that come over here, the Mamdani, the Zohrans, the new mayor of New York City, he's talking about New York was built by immigrants and it's going to remain an immigrant city. No, the fuck it was not built by immigrants. That's so disrespectful. Now, did they add to what was already built? Yes. To be an immigrant literally means that you migrated to a country from your country. Why would they all want to come over here if they wasn't coming to anything that was already built? If that was the case, why they didn't just stay where the fuck they was at and build up their homelands? They came here for the American dream. They came here for a better life. They came here for resources. They came here to take. They didn't come to assimilate necessarily because they're still flying their flags and they want to create their own little subset countries within our cities. They want to bring their culture and, change people's backgrounds, their beliefs, and a lot of things that's going on. They want to make it more like where they come from instead of becoming actual Americans. And I also think that's a slap in the face. Now, I remember I heard somebody say, oh, when did Black Americans become American? Do you know how idiotic that sounds? I done said multiple times that y'all are forcing us to be patriotic out this bitch. Y'all are forcing it. Yes, we have a lot of gripe with this country. Yes, we have a lot of issues. A lot of horrific things has happened to us here, but we've also triumphed. We've been resilient. We've created things. We are embedded in the very fabric of this country. We are written into the Constitution. A lot of the things that my ancestors and my lineage that they fought for and that they worked for is why a lot of immigrants are able to come over here and benefit to this day. Now, I don't like to get into things I get deep, but I try to not go all the way there because I get tired of arguing with you motherfuckers. I be so tired of arguing with y'all. But the Arab community, a lot of them are very racist. The Muslim, I'm trying not to, the misogyny, the way women are treated. The Arab slave trade was the most horrific shit on planet Earth, and it's still happening to this day. Y'all better wake the fuck up. Just because somebody is singing New York by Jay-Z and eating fucking chicken wings with you, that does not mean that they have your best interest at heart. When are we going to stop falling from the fucking blood clot minstrel show? It gets to a point. It gets to a motherfucking point. A lot of those people, not all, they don't fuck with the LGBTQ. A lot of the shit that you on, y'all are voting for people that are completely opposite of what your core values and beliefs are. And you just don't even fucking know it. Because you play too much into the smoke and mirrors. And in New York City, where I'm from, we had the Harlem fucking Renaissance. That was happening simultaneously with the Great Depression. Do you know how fucking magical that is? That a Renaissance was happening? Black Americans was creating the most beautiful pieces of art. Curating the most beautiful fucking art pieces that is known to the modern world. And the rest of the world, outside of that hub, outside of that bubble, was going through a fucking Great Depression. That's how great we are. Central Park was built over a village that was filled with beautiful black people called Seneca Village. Wall Street, we built that shit. The fucking bridges, the Brooklyn Bridge, we built all of this shit. Did other people come and help and add? Yes. But did they build it? No. The foundation was already here. So it is a disrespect and a slap in the face to fucking say, it's like y'all just trying to erase black American people. And I'm not going for that ethnic erasure. We're not going. So if I'm xenophobic for that, then so be it. I had somebody say, oh, I'm unfollowing you because you've been xenophobic. Bitch, how I'm xenophobic for saying that immigrants didn't fucking build New York? Did I lie? I didn't lie. Did they add to? Yes. But you didn't build it. Y'all do that shit with every fucking thing we've accomplished. Y'all do that shit with fucking hip hop. Y'all do that shit with our hairstyles, with our style, with our vernacular. Our everything. It gets to a fucking point. Spread love is the Brooklyn way.
Okay, so I wasn't going to talk about this, but it just continues to irk me, okay? Because some certain things should be obvious, all right? And they've done it again. And hopefully you're watching. You do not ignore the indigenous or black Americans, ethnic black Americans, when you say anything about New York. It's a slap in the face to completely ignore the indigenous and black Americans. Period. Now let's get to the truth of the matter. White immigrants and the indigenous and black Americans, both enslaved and free, okay, founded and built New York. So let's go ahead and move the immigrant white class aside real quick. Now, when you say immigrants, the indigenous are not immigrants, okay, and black Americans are not immigrants. So stop saying dumb stuff, okay? Because I'm getting ready to prove it to you, okay? Mamdani. I'm going to read it because I done printed out a whole bunch of stuff, so I'm going to read it real quick. Black Americans, both enslaved and free, played a major role in the building of New York City and more broadly New York State after its founding. Okay? So it was founded. Okay, let's go back to the 16 and 1700s, okay? The Dutch West India Company brought enslaved Africans to New Amsterdam as early as 1626, okay? The Dutch. All right, from there, that we were all, my forefathers were constructing roads, walls, docks in the 18th and 19th centuries, okay? Oh, as a matter of fact, wait a minute. I left something else out. Wall Street. Wall Street. Black Americans helped build Wall Street area, named for the wall, okay? We know what that is. I'm not even going to get into it. 18th and 19th centuries. New York City had one of the largest enslaved populations in the North until the gradual emancipation began in the 1799 and ended in 1872. Okay? After emancipation, free black New Yorkers formed communities such as Seneca Village, where is now Central Park. They worked as laborers, business owners, artisans who helped shape the growing city. Industrial and modern growth. In later centuries, black laborers and migrants from the South, that's where I'm from, okay? A lot of my family moved up there, okay? During the Great Migration of the 20th century were essential to the city's continued development. I have cousins up there that own businesses, okay? Some mighty big ones too. Black Americans were in construction, transportation, cultural life, okay? Everybody knows I love talking about this Harlem, baby. Harlem, the Harlem Renaissance. Black Americans were foundational for real in bringing a whole bunch of immigrants, the attraction of immigrants into New York. New York wasn't even popping without us. It wasn't even popping. Fort Amsterdam, now Battery Park area, built by who? Black folks. The Burial Ground Monument. Of course, I said Seneca Village, Brooklyn, and the waterfront. The enslaved and later free black workers helped to build Brooklyn shipyards, docks, factories, all throughout the 18th and 19th centuries. Black sailors, dock workers, tradesmen played a vital role in New York's rise as a maritime power. Then they mentioned, just like I said, I got ahead of myself, Harlem, because I love talking about that. Harlem became the cultural capital of Black America, home of the Black Renaissance, shaping literature, music, especially jazz, and art world freaking wide. Okay? Don't ignore Black Americans. Buildings in Harlem's historic district were often built or renovated by Black laborers and craftspeople. And yes, we owned real estate up in that bad boy. Okay? Real estate investor, businesses, okay? Throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, Black New Yorkers have contributed to major construction projects, bridges, subway expansion, skyscrapers, architecture, public art, and activism for fair labor and housing. Activism? You left out Black Americans, all you said was immigrants? And here we go. Well, are Black Americans doing stuff now? Yeah, we never stopped. We never stopped. So let me go and look at what ChatGPT said about your statement. Mamdani's statement is only partly true. From the mid-1800s onwards, millions of immigrants from Irish, Germans, Italians, Jews, Chinese, Eastern Europeans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and others came to New York, and they did help build, right? Some of the modern infrastructure. So they helped build some of the modern infrastructure. Subways, bridges, they did join in and help. All right? The problem with your statement, though, Mamdani, the statement is incomplete. It leaves out two key groups who are not voluntary immigrants, okay? And they are not immigrants. Indigenous peoples, the Lenape, hopefully I'm saying that right, the original inhabitants of the freaking state you're in, dude. It was their land first, all right? And all their knowledge of the land made settlement there possible. Then you have enslaved and free Black Americans. And I'm going to let you see this one, okay? Because you might not know. Who were forcibly brought, not immigrants, whose labor literally built early New York's foundations, forts, roads, docks, Wall Street, etc. And ChatGPT also says how you should have said it. Okay, so let me read how you should have said it, Mamdani. New York City was built by indigenous peoples, enslaved Africans and their descendants, Black Americans, and immigrants from around the world. That version honors the full chain of human effort, from those who were here first, to those brought in bondage, to those who arrived seeking freedom or opportunity. Don't ever leave out indigenous. Don't ever leave out Black Americans, ethnic Black Americans, because it really pisses us to flip off. Okay? You don't take credit for what the flip you didn't do. You take credit for what the flip you did do, but don't sit up there and cut out history for when you first got here. No, that's some bull crap. Okay? You go back. If you're going to represent New York or any place in the United States of America, you make sure you understand that Black Americans and the indigenous were freaking here, and we are not immigrants. And it was us who suffered the most, okay, at the building of this freaking nation. Nobody freaking else, nobody else carried the full weight of the United States of America like the Black Americans and indigenous. Nobody.
The migrant situation in Chicago and New York is being led by the federal government. They're spearheading this to basically erase black people politically. Chicago has the only predominantly black U.S. congressional district in the entire country. That's why Obama had a lane. Carol Moseley Braun had a lane. Most of your modern black senators, we've only had a handful. They came from Chicago because y'all have the only predominantly black U.S. congressional district. So they want to switch that out for Latinos. That's why they're here, to replace us politically. I suspect that at some future point in time, if they're not already doing it, they're going to fast track the migrants in Chicago and New York to full citizenship so they can vote. And I wouldn't be surprised if they'll be eligible to vote in time for next November's presidential election. This is a purge of black by brown, and this is a takeover because Chicago and New York are our two strongest and largest black communities and black consciousness communities. So they want to blot that out. The strategy is if we can take New York and take Chicago, the rest of black America doesn't stand a chance.
If I want to make sure I understood your question. You're asking where will people go when they're here.
Right.
So I'm gonna answer that. Okay.
Guys, can we give her an opportunity to answer Ms. Matthews' question, please?
So people, the people that we're talking about are human beings just like you.
We know that. We know that. It is not us against them. We don't need you to tell us that. No, we don't need you to tell us that. It's not us against them, and that's the problem we don't care for. We don't care for that. We are not insensitive, but we got a problem with you thinking you can jam something down our throat.
Go ahead, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson, go ahead.
Okay, hold on. My question, are you the one to make the decision to take our part?
Hold on.
Okay, let me share this with you. First of all,
Ms. Johnson, hold on one second.
First of all,
Ms. Johnson, hold on 1 second.
Okay, you have to be quiet.
Guys, can we have your attention, please?
We don't want them in our community. Let them go back to where they came from. Because it's my position that if you have a problem with your country, then you stay and you make it better by fighting that government, making your government do what it needs to do by its people, because that's what we do in this country. That's what I've been doing all of my life. I don't have any place to run to. America is my home. It's my country. We built it.
The bottom line is when Joe Biden got elected, he said he wanted to fast track 4 million undocumented residents to full citizenship. Black people completely ignored it. I spoke on it. I said, do you know why he want to fast track 4 million? Because he know he's not going to do nothing for us. We ain't going to be motivated to vote for him in November. So what he's going to do is have these migrants already set up with citizenship so they can replace the black vote that he loses. The migrants are being put in our communities on purpose, New York and Chicago on purpose, because they are what? The two blackest cities in America. They're the two largest cities in America. They're the two most politically conscious black communities in America. So if we can wash out the black with the brown in New York, if we can wash out the black with the brown in Chicago, Philly don't stand a chance. Atlanta don't stand a chance. LA, Houston, Dallas, Detroit, Chicago don't stand a chance. The migrants are here for 3 reasons. Replace us at the polls. Replace us at the low-end industry jobs, right? See, when Donald Trump said during the debate that Joe Biden is taking black jobs and giving them to migrants, he was correct. Although he didn't say it because he cared about us, but he's right. When people say, what do you mean by black jobs? Get out your bougie feelings and deal with the reality. 1/3 of black men have a felony. So there's a lot of jobs they will never qualify for. They are mostly what? Essential workers, warehouse, trucking, security. And a lot of those jobs are going to who? The migrants. So that's what he meant by black jobs. We got to stop being so sensitive and look at the reality of it. I was reading a report the other day. They said the Latinos taking over the construction jobs. They taking them over. And the low industry work, like your gardening, your landscaping, completely taking it over. They're not the enemy. The problem is black people don't get as much opportunity. So then people say, well, you know, white people don't really like brown people like that. That's true. But you know what the difference is? They don't have the burden of accountability with them that they have with us. We built the country. So every time they look at us or deal with us, the bottom line is y'all brought them here and they built y'all into what y'all are. They don't have to say that to the Venezuelans. They don't have to say that to the Colombians. They don't have to say that to the Mexicans. So although they don't like brown, they will much rather deal with them than the black, because with the black, there is a white man's burden that you owe them restitution for 246 years of unpaid labor. Now let's look at what Eric Adams is doing over there in New York. A family of four is getting $1,400 a month. $1,400 a month. Do you know that that's more than what some of the veterans are getting with a child? They're getting more money than veterans who served in the military. Damn. Not only that, they're getting free food stamps, free child care, and permanent housing. Although New York City has a black homelessness rate no less than 35%. So you got black people who pay taxes living on the street, and you got migrants who ain't paid a single tax in their life eating and living better than the black people who built the country. If I was talking to Eric Adams and Brandon Johnson of Chicago, I would ask them something. What is the Democratic Party giving you guys that you're willing to sacrifice your political future to push this migrant agenda? Because I don't see how they get reelected by black folks. I don't see how. And if your city goes to the migrants, you can best believe the migrants ain't electing no black person to mayorship. So you're literally dying on your sword for the Democratic Party. Do you know that New York City has spent $1.5 billion on the migrant crisis so far? It's projected that this year, 2023 was $1.5 billion to take care of the migrants. $1.5 billion. 2024 and 2025, they said it will cost New York City $9 billion. Chicago has spent about $350 million this year on the migrant crisis, and that's expected to quadruple. And you know what was so disrespectful about Chicago with regard to Brandon Johnson? Remember all them schools they shut down in Chicago because they said they couldn't afford to operate them? They opened them up. Not only did they open them up, they renovated them. Turned them into apartments for migrants. So you sleep upstairs, go to school downstairs. How is it that you ain't got money for jobs for black people, which is a big reason why you got so much crime? You got all these homeless black people in Chicago, but you can take care of the migrants before you take care of black people. And that's why I'm hoping that Black Chicago organizes, just like co-founder of the Black Panther Party, Bobby Seale did at the 1968 Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Bobby Seale turned up and turned it out with the Black Panthers. I hope Chicago doesn't let President Biden and Vice President Harris come there, because you know the Democratic National Convention is in Chicago, right? August 19th through August the 21st. I hope Black Chicago don't let the Democrats come to your city where they have bred this migrant crisis and y'all don't do nothing about it. And I'm going to tell you who else needs to stand up and show out. Milwaukee. Even though they don't have a migrant crisis like Chicago and New York, the Republican convention is in Milwaukee next Monday, this coming Monday. And guess what? Milwaukee, black people are the largest ethnic group. Unlike Chicago, it's white, Hispanic, black. But as I travel America, guess what? There's migrant camps in nearly every black community I'm coming across. I was in Kansas City. They got a migrant camp. Philadelphia has a burgeoning one. I just came from Antioch. They have one. Sacramento, they have one. They're popping up all over the place where black people are, because they're going to be the new minorities once America gets rid of us. The second reason they're letting the migrants in is to keep big businesses in America.
Cheap labor.
Absolutely, cheap labor. Because what the corporations is telling the government, if I have to stay here, I got to pay for all kinds of labor insurance. You know, if somebody gets pregnant, they get off. If they have a mental health problem, they get off. I got to pay them. It costs me too much to operate a business in America. If you want me to stay, you better bring some of them brown people from across that border and let me pay them pennies on a dollar under the table. And the reason they love the brown people instead of the black people is because we are an obligation to America. We built it. We built it. So we're an obligation. We're the nuisance that they don't want. But when brown people show up, their ancestors didn't build this country. They come into a place better than the place that they're leaving. They will keep their mouth shut. They will not agitate. They will never become a political problem because they feel it is a blessing just to be here. Capitalism isn't the white man's priority in America. It is racism and white supremacy. There is no amount of money America will not pay to rid itself of the unwanted Negro. People say, look at all the money they spend to keep us in prison. They can spend a third of that and improve the schools. You don't get it. This is not a money game. This is an extermination game. Whatever they must do to get rid of black people, they will do it. You know what the American dream is? The American dream is not a big house and a big car and a big bank account. The American dream is to wake up and walk outside and not see a single black person anywhere in sight. That's the American dream.
It is the stupidity of man to think that he can do evil, even some monstrous evil, and it won't have any backlash on himself. But of course, it seldom works that way, and the moment he figures that out, he starts looking for a way to avoid the repercussions of what he's done. This is what happened with slavery. In the early 1800s, as it began to look like the end of slavery might be on the horizon, white America started to be concerned that a day of reckoning was coming. The primary fear for the average person was of retribution and insurrection, and that was a reasonable fear. After all, it's illogical to think that you can do to a whole group of people what was done to African Americans and think that they will just take it lying down forever. And of course, there were things like the Nat Turner uprisings. But for the wealthy elite, their fears went beyond things like insurrection. They were worried about the financial impact. Remember, it was not just the cotton plantations that profited from slavery. Whether you're talking about the banks or the insurance companies, the railroads, even the newspapers, the fact is that almost every aspect of the American economy was at some level or another invested in the slave business. You also need to recognize that for the wealthy elitist who controlled this system, slaves were an asset as long as they were slaves. But at the moment they are set free, they become a liability. And what the elite knew was that the end of slavery would instantly release 4 million people into the economy who had been kept uneducated and effectively unemployable anywhere but the cotton field. The other fear that these people had was intermarriage between blacks and whites would lead to a loss of racial purity. The question was, what were they going to do about it? And their initial thought was that they would just send all the slaves back to Africa. This plan was called colonization, and it had broad support among the wealthy elite. In fact, the American Colonization Society was even funded by the United States Congress. But in the end, colonization proved to be unworkable, and the idea was eventually scrapped. But about that same time, a new philosophy was emerging in the world. It was called eugenics, and for some, it seemed like the perfect solution to what had become known as the Negro Dilemma.
Don't tell me we don't have money. That's crap. Excuse my expression. Crap.
It is what it is. You gotta call it like it is.
Now look at this.
Bull crap at that.
Right. Thank you, sir. $1.1 trillion comes through black hands.
That's right.
This year. So don't say we don't have money. We don't have unity. Right. And if we had unity and pooled our money, then we could begin to take control of where we live. If we don't have money, why are the Arabs here? If we don't have money, why are the Koreans here? Right. If we don't have money, why is every immigrant that comes to America find their way into the black community to build their empire, their American dream on the black nightmare? So we have got to change that reality.
Yes, this is really important. Asian Americans were redlined from opening businesses in white neighborhoods because white people didn't want Asian Americans operating in their neighborhoods and didn't want Asian Americans profiting off of white people. But because the positionality of Asian Americans is weaponized to oppress black people, Asian Americans were being given loans to open businesses in black communities, even though black people were not able to receive loans to open businesses in their own communities. And as I've said before, as a result of this, black wealth is essentially paid out twice when it goes to Asian American businesses. Once when the individual pays for the goods or services, and then again when the Asian American business owner removes the profit from the community. Because usually people open businesses in their own communities, and this is mutually beneficial, where the business owner is making a livelihood off of providing goods and services to their community. And by being a member of the community, they're contributing and they're investing back into the community. This is an ideal situation, and that is not what happens with Asian American businesses operating in black communities. Obviously, the issue of Asian American owned businesses operating in black communities is a huge source of tension because it is part of the daily violence faced by black people in their own communities when they are disrespected as customers, to the literal physical violence, as was the case of the salon in Brooklyn, where a black woman was locked into the salon by workers while they beat her with broomsticks, to the damage done to the psyches of particularly black children when they are accused of shoplifting. And this isn't a topic that I'm going to be able to cover in one video, but it is a conversation that I do want to start. I think that if you ask some people what was the source of the tension, they'll say the LA riots and what happened in Koreatown, but you cannot mention the LA riots without recognizing the unaliving of Latasha Harlins the year before. A 15-year-old girl who was unalived by an Asian shop owner who thought that she was shoplifting orange juice, but the money to pay for the orange juice was in her hand when she was unalived. To overlook that is to value profit and property over black bodies, which is at the root of the United States systemically racist system and capitalism. But I think that we have to go all the way back to the Civil Rights Amendment of 1964 and then the opening of Asian immigration in 1965. So in 1964, white power structure almost faced accountability to black people. Black people should have started to be able to receive loans to open businesses in their own communities. But instead, in 1965, the United States opened the door to Asian immigration, and redlining meant that Asian Americans were receiving business loans, but only to open businesses in black communities, and black people were still not receiving loans to open businesses in their own communities. So where you have this weaponized positionality of Asian Americans being put in black people's way, of course you are going to have resentment not only over the supplanted opportunity to open businesses in their communities, but also over the fact that the black dollar is now being paid out twice. Once when the customer pays for the goods or services, and then again when the Asian business owner removes that wealth from the black community. And I frequently heard the tension being framed as mutual misunderstanding, where these Asian shop owners didn't know about the civil rights struggles of black people, and black people were not familiar with the culture of Asian business owners. But I don't think that it can be framed as mutual misunderstanding where there is an uneven power dynamic. You have one demographic that is the business owners, and you have the other demographic that is having to pay. So where there is uneven power, I don't think that it's accurate to frame it as mutual misunderstanding.
I'm that type of person that's gonna have your back all day long, but when it comes time to hold your feet to the fire, I'm gonna hold your feet to the fire, and the time has come. So gather around, listen up, let me learn you something. Birthright citizenship, it had to be started because of black people. Birthright citizenship is tied to slavery. Before the Civil War, black people, enslaved or free, weren't considered people. They weren't considered citizens. This is Dred Scott. Dred Scott fought for our right to exist as people in this country. Dred Scott and his wife Harriet sued for their freedom. He was a slave, bought and sold like a piece of property. In 1857, the Supreme Court made sure we knew where we stood, saying that no black person, free or enslaved, could ever be a U.S. citizen. But after the Civil War, Congress passed the 14th Amendment in 1868 to explicitly overturn Dred Scott and make sure that anybody that's born on U.S. soil is automatically a U.S. citizen. This was about making sure that formerly enslaved Black Americans could never have their citizenship stripped from them again. And yet here we are, watching people try to undo all of that work. We know they put a block on it. How long is that going to last? They say it's about immigration. Let's be real, if they can strip it from one group, who's next? Birthright citizenship is a correction, a promise that no one born here could be denied their place. And if we let them rewrite that, we're erasing the very foundation of freedom in this country.
And this is why they hate blacks in America so much, the white power structure. We're the only non-white people in the country who cannot be sent home. Right. You cannot be deported. Slavery destroyed your cultural, psychological, and intellectual connection to your ancestral homeland. If the Ghanaian get on your nerve, he go back to Ghana. If the Puerto Rican gets on your nerves, he go back to Puerto Rico. If the Afro-Cuban gets on your nerves, he or she go back to Cuba. If the Chinese get on your nerves, send them back to China. If the East Indian gets on your nerves, send them back to India. If the Arab gets on your nerve, send them back to one of the Middle Eastern states. But when American Africans get on your nerves, where do you deport us to? Most American Africans are so brainwashed, they think they're American. So you cannot deport them because this is what they identify with most. So in other words, the white man created his own problem, which makes it almost impossible to deport us. So the only way to get rid of us is a systemic system of racial genocide. And that's what they're using.
About time we stop, those of us who support, as most of us do, Israel in this body, for apologizing for our support for Israel. There's no apology to be made. None. It is the best $3 billion investment we make. Were there not an Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel to protect her interest in the region. The United States would have to go out and invent an Israel. The second part is people should understand by now, this should be crystal clear, that Israel is the single greatest strength America has in the Middle East. I always say to my friends when they say those things to you, I say, imagine our circumstance in the world were there no Israel. How many battleships would there be? How many troops would be stationed? You know, I used to say early on when I was a kid, I'd say, when I was a young senator, I'd say, if I were a Jew, I'd be a Zionist. I am a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
Progress occurs in the Middle East when everyone knows there's simply no space between the United States and Israel. There is no space between the United States and Israel when it comes to Israel's security. There is only one nation in the world that has unequivocally, without hesitation, and consistently confronted the efforts to delegitimize Israel. At every point in our administration, at every juncture, we've stood up on behalf of the legitimacy of the state of Israel.
The security of Israel and the United States is inextricably tied, and we will never, ever, ever abandon Israel out of our own self-interest. I also emphasize what I've said throughout this conflict. The United States fully supports Israel's right to defend itself against indiscriminate rocket attacks from Hamas and other Gaza-based terrorist groups that have taken the lives of innocent civilians in Israel.
Obama telling Black Americans how things work.
Why not say then, this is for you, this is for African Americans? That's not how America works. President Barack Obama has begun new initiatives aimed at helping young American Indians or Native Americans overcome the many challenges they face. Why not target the African American community? Why not say then, this is for you, this is for African Americans? That's not how America works. That's not how America works.
That is why America's commitment to Israel has endured under Democratic and Republican presidents and congressional leaders of both parties. In the United States, our support for Israel is bipartisan, and that is how it should stay. But as you examine my commitment, you don't just have to count on my words. You can look at my deeds. Because over the last 3 years as President of the United States, I have kept my commitments to the state of Israel. At every crucial juncture, at every fork in the road, we have been there for Israel every...
Kamala Harris is a Zionist, and for you liberals, in order for you to rather, let's say, downplay this, you have to downplay what Zionism consists of. Now, if you actually picked up a book and did bare minimum research, you would know that Zionism, this movement, because you reference this issue, conflict as being centuries, thousands of years or something like that. No, the current modern day Zionism is essentially a European ideology, right? The founder, Theodor Herz, this is 19th century, 20th century. They speak openly about colonization, ethnic cleansing, because, again, in order to establish that state, people are going to have to be removed. When Uganda was a possible location for Israel, what do you think was going to happen to those Africans in that region? They're going to be ethnically cleansed. That's the issue. Y'all live in delusion and expect everybody else to be in that level of delusion. She's a committed Zionist. 2014, one of her first acts as senator was condemning a UN resolution against Israel's illegal settlement camps. Meaning, what is it? These illegal settlement camps, that's ethnic cleansing. Right? They're occupying land. They're removing the people who are being there. That is agreeing with the methods. What was her first act as vice president? Calling Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, and informing him that the U.S. is going to be supporting them against the ICC's investigation of what? Israel's war crimes. What was she saying on her campaign? What was her team saying? They believe in the expansion of Israel. The expansion, that's further war crimes. That's more ethnic cleansing. Occupation. That is agreeing with the methods. She was part of a Zionist administration. Her husband's a Jewish Zionist. They're part of a anti-Semitic task force. Like, what other documentation do you need? You need to speak about her love for Israel. She compares her love for Israel like her love for the U.S., like the love for her family. This is all verifiable. You can back it up in research. And that's the difference. Y'all don't research, but y'all debate people, and y'all speak down on people who actually know what they're talking about. Go pick up a book. Go actually research, and stop debating with people who know what they're talking about.
Support reparations for Black people.
Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination, segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, Black people have not. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of Black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects Black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit Black children, Black families, Black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this: any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No, because whatever benefits that Black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country. Right?
What specific actions do you plan to take to administer reparations for this unpaid labor?
Right. So I'm actually supporting a bill. There's a congresswoman by the name of Sheila Jackson Lee that has written this bill out of the House, which I am supporting, to study exactly what should be the response to your question. But to your point, and to just support your point, look, we had centuries of slavery in this country. We had decades of Jim Crow. We had
legalized discrimination and segregation. And then we had de facto discrimination and segregation. And to believe or suggest that those years of treatment and abuse and violence and crimes did not have an impact is to overlook the facts of history. And for that reason, I support the legislation and what we need to do to think about specifically what it means in terms of the next steps. But I thank you for that question.
Senator, yes or no, do you support financial reparations?
I support that we study that. We should study it.
Gavin Newsom saw it fit to veto not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 bills that would have provided some benefit to descendants of people who were enslaved. And I think what is mind-blowing about this is what he agreed to was a study. We know over and over again that folks are put into position to review. And maybe it's because this textbook thing, that people have been banning textbooks long before they were off the shelves, they wouldn't even look at them to deal with guilt. So now Gavin Newsom, who has found time to engage with white Republicans, especially those who support and lift up white racist ideology, saw fit to veto 5 bills that would have provided some type of restorative or reparative justice for folks who are descendants of enslaved people.
Really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No. Good morning, AIPAC. Good morning. What an honor. Lillian, congratulations on your outstanding presidency, and it's great to be with you again this year. I also want to thank AIPAC's Executive Director, Howard Kaur, and I'm just thrilled to see all of the students in the audience. In you, I see our future. I want to especially recognize the nearly 1,000 Californians who are here today. And of course, including my dear friends and AIPAC board members, Anita Friedman and Sissy Swig and Amy Friedkin. And I'm proud to say and be that among the many voices represented here, the California delegation is the largest and hopefully the loudest. There you go. So having grown up in the Bay Area, I fondly remember those Jewish National Fund boxes that we would use to collect donations to plant trees for Israel. Years later, when I visited Israel for the first time, I saw the fruits of that effort and the Israeli ingenuity that has truly made a desert bloom. I soaked in the sights and sounds and smells of Jerusalem. I stood in Yad Vashem, devastated by the silent testimonies of the 6 million Jews that were murdered in the Holocaust. And we must always remember that solemn promise, never again. And I did what I often do when visiting a new country. I visited the highest court in the land. And as I toured Israel's Supreme Court, I was struck by the iconic architecture, which embodies Israel's founding principles of democracy and rule of law. The design of that building left a lasting impression on me. Its straight lines, which represent the immutable nature of truth, while the curved walls and glass represent the fluid nature of tzedek, of justice. And this is a concept that is personal for me, because it's that same commitment to justice for the voiceless and the vulnerable that led my parents as students to march for civil rights in the 1960s while pushing me in a stroller. And it's why I became a prosecutor and personally prosecuted everything from low-level offenses to homicides. It's why I became San Francisco District Attorney and was later elected Attorney General of California, where I took on, where I took on transnational gangs, cyber criminals, and mortgage fraud. And that commitment to justice is why I ran to become a United States Senator from the great state of California. the point being to continue that fight. And a critical piece of my agenda is the fight to defend and strengthen our national security. As a member of both the Senate Intelligence Committee and Homeland Security Committee, I have a front row seat to these issues, and I am proud to stand strongly with America's allies, including Israel. So let me be clear about what I believe. I stand with Israel because of our shared values, which are so fundamental to the founding of both our nations. I believe the bonds between the United States and Israel are unbreakable, and we can never let anyone drive a wedge between us. Our bonds are rooted in our shared history and are strengthened by the ties between our peoples. And in the words of Shimon Peres, whose loss we mourn so deeply, for Israel's existence, we need the friendship of the United States of America. And of course, he knew that feeling goes both ways. And there's no question that friendship and our partnership must be unwavering. And I believe that Israel must be, the teleprompter has stopped, and now I'm going to catch it back up. There we are. I believe Israel should never be a partisan issue. And as long as I'm a United States Senator, I will do everything in my power to ensure broad and bipartisan support for Israel's security and right to self-defense. I believe that the only viable resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is 2 states for 2 people living side by side in peace and security. I believe that a resolution to this conflict cannot be imposed. It must be agreed upon by the parties themselves. Peace can only come through a reconciliation of differences, and that can only happen at the negotiating table. I believe that when any organization delegitimizes Israel, we must stand up and speak out for Israel to be treated equally. And that is why the first resolution I co-sponsored as a United States Senator was to combat anti-Israel bias at the United Nations and reaffirm that the United States seeks a just, secure, and sustainable 2-state solution. And as someone who has personally prosecuted hate crime, I also believe that we cannot stand by while anti-Semitism, hate crime, and bigotry are on the rise, whether that's a swastika on a Jewish family and children's services bus in San Francisco or the burning of a mosque in Tampa. That's why I am pleased to announce, for the first time here at AIPAC, that I'm introducing a Senate resolution that condemns targeting of Jews, as well as any form of religious bias, racism, misogyny, or other hateful acts targeting minorities across the United States. And let's be candid. Many, including those in this hall, have been directly impacted by the outrageous incidents targeting the Jewish community. This violence and hate is alarming and simply unacceptable. No one should have to worry about their children's safety when they drop them off at the JCC. No one should have to be afraid to put a menorah in their front window or on their front lawn. And no one should ever have to fear that the grave of a loved one might be desecrated because of their faith. So my resolution calls on law enforcement to expedite investigations of hate crime and hold perpetrators accountable. My resolution calls on law enforcement to fully report hate crime statistics. And my resolution calls on the administration to support victims and fund security at places of worship and other institutions that have been targeted, of any faith. And as I fight to promote human rights and security, Israel and the Jewish community will always be a priority for me. And that is why, as Senator, I am particularly focused on 3 areas where I believe the United States and Israel can expand our cooperation and where California plays an important and central role. And the 3 are defense, cybersecurity, and water security. So let's think about it. First, defense. In the midst of uncertainty and turmoil, America's support for Israel's security must be rock solid.
Excuse the way I sound and the way I look. I am battling a terrible flu. I want to point out the fact that Zionists are anti-black and they use anti-blackness as one of the many ways to continuously oppress Palestinian people and black people.
אנחנו גזענים כדי לרצות לשמור על החיים שלנו ועל השפיות שלנו. אז אני גאה בלהיות גזענית. אני גאה בלהיות גזענית. אם אני גזענית בשביל לשמור על החיים שלי, אז אני גאה. My kids, especially my sons, is not safe here in Israel. תפסיק לעשות את זה כבר. אתם מפליטים!
לשים מייקאפ לבן? לא יודע, אני לא יודע, אין לי מושג.
מה אתיופית צריך לעשות? לצאת מהארץ שלנו. כאשר שוטר פוגש חשוד, מטבע הדברים המוח שלו חושד בו יותר מאשר הוא היה חושד בו אילו הוא היה מישהו אחר. זה טבעי.
אחרי שראש ממשלת ישראל מר בנימין נתניהו הבטיח לנו שוב ושוב שהוא יפתור את בעיית המסתננים. אתה יודע, היום אברי יש נתון של 2,000 לידות בשנה, שזה נתון מטורף לכל מגזר שנמצא בארץ.
Of the Israeli government holding a private convention here in the United States. One of the people in attendance at this secret meeting was Judith Varnai Shorer. She's a former Israeli consul general who was operating out of Atlanta. She was one of the main people saying that the biggest problem that they had was young black people in the United States. But don't worry, they've got some black leaders on the payroll.
The major problem of Israel is with the young generation of the black community. The problem of Israel is with the young generation of the black community. Black is with the young generation of the black community.
This was an Israeli government official who was saying this, not some low-level operative or some rogue member of their diplomatic corps. This was a senior member of their administrative government who was saying this on American soil. Their biggest problem wasn't Hamas or Hezbollah or the Palestinian Authority or Syria or even Iran. She said that Israel's biggest problem was young black people in the United States.
AIPAC. I will not vote for a candidate that takes $1 from AIPAC.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I haven't thought about AIPAC. And it's interesting. You're like the first to bring up AIPAC in yours, which is interesting. Why did I say that? Not relevant to my day-to-day life.
Okay.
Which is just interesting. Listen, it's interesting you say that. JPAC perhaps more, but AIPAC less and less.
Okay, fair enough.
Which is just interesting.
What's interesting about it?
That it's just interesting as you bring up AIPAC.
Are you in favor of halting military assistance to Israel?
No, I'm not prepared to say that I would support a blanket exemption for military support of it.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom saying I stand with Israel is just, peak Democrat. All this energy about, oh, I'm not Trump this, I'm not Trump that. But yeah, I mean, you essentially are. Killing kids, I don't care policy. Yeah, you're a horrible person.